What's up, guys? Mark back here with yet another video. So today I want to talk to you guys about the Panasonic Lumix G85. I've been playing around with this camera for about the last 3 or 4 weeks now, and I've got to say, for those of you that don't want to wait to the very end to kind of get my conclusions, let me just tell you right now, if you're on the fence between the Panasonic G7 and this camera, the G85, just get the G85. There are too many improvements over the G7 that just make it totally worth it. Let's go ahead and take a look. So the first thing on my list, I want to talk about the build quality. The build quality over the G7 is far and away much, much better. We do have some better weather sealing here. We do have quite a bit of dust resistance, weather resistance. I wouldn't say it's waterproof, but it's definitely a step up over the G7. The one thing that the G7 did have over this one, obviously, was its weight. And that was because it didn't have as robust of a build. So if you're a little bit harder on your gear, if you are more of an outdoorsy type shooter, you're definitely going to want to opt for the G85 as opposed to the G7. The G7 is a fantastic indoor camera, a B cam, anything like that. It doesn't have as good of autofocus as the G85. But if you're wanting to just lock it onto a subject, sort of like static shots, product photography, food photography, something like that, or vlog style videos like this, I think that the G7's okay, so you could probably save your money. But if you want better autofocus, if you want it to track a moving head or a face, you're definitely going to want to get the G85. I just think that it's far and away a much, much better system. Next up, let's talk about some design and controls. For the most part, it's the exact same camera. If you're used to a GH4, if you've already got the G7, the G85 is almost exactly the same. The controls are, for the most part, built and situated in the exact same places. There's not much of a change there. Overall, it's a very familiar design, very comfortable. The grip, very, very nice. I really do like the grip. It's very comfortable, and it's on its own. The G85 it's not that heavy of a camera at all, so you're not going to get fatigued like you would with a larger DSLR, like a Canon or Nikon or something like that. Overall, the build quality, the design and the controls and everything are pretty much on par with what you would expect from Panasonic. Now, of course, this being a Panasonic camera, the sensor size is, of course, micro four thirds. It's not a bad sensor size. As a matter of fact, I have been pleasantly surprised with how well this camera handles low light situations. I mean, it's not out of this world. It's not A7S Mark II from Sony quality. But for those of you that, like me, because I was in the exact same position, I thought, such a small sensor, the image quality is just not going to be good at all. It's not true. It really is so much better than what I was expecting. And I think that anyone that hasn't given it a try, at least try it out and see if it's going to meet your particular lighting requirement needs. For me, I'm sitting here in an extremely dark room. As you can see, I have one key light right here in front of me, and I'm even slightly backlit with a few accent lights and stuff. I think that it handles the color and the low light and everything very, very good. Okay, so in this test, what I did is I went in video mode all the way through the ISO range, and I basically just put it in program mode so that the exposure would automatically adjust as I increase the ISO. You're going to notice that as we go through the ISO ranges, that the image does slowly but surely degrade all the way through. I think Panasonic, for the sensor size, has done a pretty good job of keeping the ISO noise under control. I'm not going to say that it's great. I'm not going to say that you should use this in all situations. I do think that they are trying. I do think that they are getting better in this department. It's, again, not the best. It is not A7S Mark II levels by any stretch of the imagination, but it does look like they are trying to keep it under control. Now, you will notice some banding in the darker areas, so those are going to be some things you're going to want to look out for. In certain types of lights, especially the LEDs, you are going to get perhaps some flicker, so you're also going to want to watch out for that. Something else to watch out for, this is especially concerning video shooters. If you'll notice, the camera does pretty good trying to touch the screen and rack focus between two different points. But the thing you'll notice right here, see that confirmation? It's sort of like it focuses and then it's got to double check and then it locks. Extremely annoying. Anyone that does video know that it's no good, and it doesn't look like someone's pulling focus. It looks very digital and artificial. Next up, I want to talk about battery life. For the most part, I find that the battery life on the G85 to be pretty good. Not stellar, not out of this world, but manageable. And I would say that I'm getting roughly between recording in 4K video around an hour to an hour and 20 minutes of 4K recording, no problem. Next up, I want to talk about the image quality. I absolutely love the images that I take with Panasonic's cameras. Thus far, I have been so impressed with the way that the camera reproduces color, the way that it processes the images. In my opinion, I think it almost looks a little bit better than Sony's renditions. I seem to think that I like their color science better. I like the way that it renders those colors so much more than I was originally thinking that I would. And I really hate the fact that I went into this whole like Panasonic journey with a lot of ill-conceived notions about what I was going to expect from Panasonic's camera. So, seriously impressed. I mean, I don't think that anyone could take a shot with one of these cameras and go, that is just complete and total garbage. There's just no way. It really is that good. I'll throw up some shots here so that you guys can kind of take a look, but I really do enjoy the images that Panasonic produces. I don't know exactly, what their process is or why it looks so appealing to me. I'm a very aesthetic shooter, so I go by the look and the feel a lot more than I do about the technical specs, and I'm getting more and more so that way when these smaller and smaller sensors continue to impress me. So as far as a vlogging camera is concerned, I think the G85 is pretty good. With the dual image stabilization that's built in, it does help take out quite a bit of the handshake overall. Now, you're not going to eliminate all of it, especially if you're walking around and stuff. Image stabilization has gotten so good these days that most of the time, no matter, really, as long as it is a casual walk, you're going to do just fine. It's going to be pretty good overall. Another thing to consider is the fact that it is a lot better than the G7 as far as being able to lock on and stay focused, as far as I can tell. Right now, I have sunglasses on, so I'm kind of testing it out as I'm kind of hiking around just a little bit, and so far so good. It's definitely for me, a welcome improvement indoors. I think that the focusing, the eye tracking, is so much better on this camera than the G7. I think that for the price, if you are a vlogger, go ahead and opt for the G85 as opposed to getting the cheaper G7. That could be a really nice B cam or something like that, an extra angle cam where maybe you don't have to change the focus as much, very slow moving subjects or whatever. But I do think that the G85 is a much better investment. So just a quick word about the autofocus on the G85. I love the camera overall, but it is the autofocus that really does kind of hold me back from this camera. Everything else I love, but being a Sony shooter, that is one of the things that I cling to. So many little quirks about Sony system that really gets on my nerves, but it is that autofocus. Not having to worry about, did it grab autofocus? Did it do it correctly? Was it solid? Was it a good lock? I never have to worry about that. With the Panasonic system, I mean, I can sit there and look at the little screen and it looks as though I'm in focus, but I'll never know for sure. And I don't have that same level of confidence that I have in the Sony systems that once my Sony a6300 grabs focus, it locks on and doesn't let go. Very, very rarely will it, lose focus and then maybe have to grab it again. But it happens so quickly and so precisely that it's not like a long-term issue. It's not a constant worry. Like, I do have some worries about whether or not I'm in focus right now, and I won't know until I put it in the video. But if Panasonic could really nail down that autofocus issue, I really don't think that there would be anything to stop so many people from moving over to Panasonic because this really would be the complete package. Panasonic is onto something with these cameras. And if this is an indication of how good it's going to be in the G85, man, do they have an amazing system on their hands. Now, for you guys that like to shoot with third-party flashes, I did test the Yongnuo YN560 Mark IVs, and they did, in fact, work perfectly. So if you happen to have third-party flashes on the Lumix G85, it's going to work no problem. So one of the main concerns about the G85 is the fact that it had really strong sensor stabilization noise. So here is a sample of what that noise sounds like. Another thing people were wondering about was, what does the stabilization actually do? Well, this is me with the Panasonic G85 handheld in a car. We're going down kind of a bumpy road. It's got lots of hills, lots of rolling hills, and every single little bump is, for the most part, smoothed out. Now, this is sort of artificial looking, so you're not going to want to do this for anything high budget. You know, if you're working for a client, I mean, get the right tools for the right job. But this gives you a general idea of just how rough you can be with the camera and it still be able to perform its job relatively well. Obviously, if you're going to do it for a client, get a gimbal, get something that will stabilize this thing, get something that will soften this up quite a bit. But I got to say that the stabilization in this camera, combined with the stabilization in the lens, it's absolutely fantastic. I also wanted to talk about this kit lens. The kit lens is really, really good. This lens is ridiculously sharp. It is so impressive for a kit lens, and it's a variable aperture kit lens. It's a zoom 3.5 to 5.6. So for most people, you would think, oh, it's not going to be a very good lens. But it really is. It is actually so much better than I was expecting it to be. Super sharp, edge to edge. Like I said, ridiculously sharp, especially if you're recording 4K video. The images come out crisp and clean. Very, very short focusing distance, so you can get some macro shots that look just absolutely gorgeous. There is so much to love about this little lens, and the fact that it's included with the package absolutely blows me away. And it's also image stabilized, so you can get slower shutter speeds, handheld, and still be able to get the shot without a bunch of handshake and motion blur. For a $1,000 package, I really do think that Panasonic has really done fantastic with this camera lens combo. Just saying. Next up, I don't think that I really have to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I want to talk about the screen and the viewfinder. First of all, the viewfinder on this Panasonic G85 is extremely bright, extremely functional, very responsive, and it gives you a good view of what you're actually going to be looking at. Of course, electronic viewfinders are the future. They're the way to go from here on out. You get to actually see what you're about to capture before you even take the shutter button, whereas with a traditional optical viewfinder DSLR, you have to take the shot, chimp the picture, make sure that your exposure and everything's good, look at your histogram. All those days are over. This electronic viewfinder is probably one of the better ones that I've used. Not the best, but most certainly usable. Very low lag when you're taking high burst shots. And the screen, oh my God. It's almost exactly like the G7. So again, I go back to the fact that I love a touchscreen. I love a fully articulating screen. I love the fact that even the smallest minute menu items are 100% touch. I love being able to touch the screen and being able to navigate my menus. It's so much faster, so much quicker, so much more intuitive. I do want to say that it's still not as good as, say, like an iPhone or a Samsung or something like that. It's not as responsive on that level. But when you compare what you have to go through on any other camera that does not have a touchscreen, that does not have a fully articulating screen, absolutely mind-numbingly frustrating to use those kind of cameras after you've used something like this. So much better, so much easier just being able to look right over here on the side and know that you're in frame, know that everything is going well, not having to sync up your phone with your camera and then try and use that as a viewfinder or whatever. It is so much better of a system, and I honestly am going to have an extremely hard time going back to my Sony after using this for a full month. So one of the biggest draws for me to Panasonic in general is their phone app. This is the app I've been wanting. Sony, if you're listening, this app is what I've been wanting. Not only can you control simple things like ISO, white balance, exposure compensation, stuff like that, but you can also tap to focus in video mode. For instance, right now it's face tracking on my face, but at any time I can touch this screen, cancel it out, and it's going to start focusing back here on the couch in the background. And then I can tap my face and it will go back to the foreground. I can also cancel the tap to focus and it'll go right back to tracking my eye and face again. This is an extremely functional app. I absolutely love this thing. And the fact that Panasonic users get it on such a robust and amazing little package, all for $1,000, totally envious. Gotta be honest. So ultimately, who is this camera for? I'm gonna say roughly, if you're a hobbyist, if you're a vlogger, if you're an avid enthusiast and you just like to try out different systems, if you like the color science of the Panasonic cameras, if you like the flip out screen, the only thing that I wish that they had not done is they put the microphone plug off to the side of the camera, so when you have the camera or the screen flipped around, you know, towards me like I do right now, I've got this cable that's literally right in front of the screen and the rubber flappy thing right in front of the screen. It was an odd design choice on Panasonic's part. I wish they hadn't done that. I really liked the G7 microphone plug placement that was kind of up and out of the way. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's kind of a non-issue. For me, I just wish that they hadn't done it. I can still get a decent view of what's going on over there on the screen, but I don't know. It's just kind of distracting. But then again, I shouldn't be distracted by looking over there. I should be looking at you guys. But yeah, other than that, there's really not much for me to complain about. I like just about everything that Panasonic has done with this camera. The controls are in nice places. The build quality is much better than the G7. A little bit more heft, but I do know that it's going to be better protected out in the elements. And would I recommend this camera? You can bet your ass I would. I love this camera, which is right now probably my favorite vlogging camera of all time. At any rate, guys, thanks again for stopping here and hanging out with me on this program. I appreciate it. I really do. And if you guys liked the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you loved it, subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. At any rate, I'm your host, Mark Puckett, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Peace out.